Hi everybody, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host, Leon Gordon, and we're back with another exciting and jam-packed session full of Power BI tips, hints, and knowledge to pass on to you to really help you get the best and benefit from Power BI and continue to learn and grow as part of our community. So in today's session, I'm going to be introducing shortly Emil Glownia, and we're going to go into a session regarding report usage in Power BI. So just before I do that and give you a bit of a background on Emil, I'm just going to go through some house rules. We will have the Q&A open throughout the session, so please do feel free to ask any questions or ask for any further information on topics that may be of interest to you. And we'll have time as well at the end of today's session to go through some questions in a bit more detail. As always, the session will be available to you all on our YouTube channel, and I'll post a link to that in the chat throughout this session. So without any further ado, I'm just going to give Emil a brief introduction before I hand across. So Emil is a Microsoft certified solutions expert in BI and has 15 years experience in business intelligence with Microsoft tools with a particular focus on Power BI projects. He co-founded with his wife Katie a Power BI consulting company named Katie and Emil Limited, and he is an international speaker, blogger and author, and also the author of a book, A Career with Microsoft Power BI. So it's an absolute pleasure for us to have Emil with us this evening to deliver his session. Emil, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Welcome everyone. I'm very pleased to be here with everyone today, and let me share my screen and the presentation. Let me get started. So today's session is called Power BI Report Usage Dashboard. I will be presenting. I will do a quick introduction about me, which some of it was covered by Leon. We'll discuss built-in usage report. So we'll see what's available out of the box for Power BI service. And then we will discuss an option of building your bespoke report usage dashboard. And I will share with you a dashboard that I've developed, and then we'll go to the details of it. And at the end, questions and answers. So you already know a little bit about me. I'm not going to repeat that. Katie is my wife. She's a Power BI developer, so we work on our consulting business together as a team. As mentioned, there is a book, A Career with Microsoft Power BI. It's available for free on Amazon. You can visit our website, katieandemil.com/books, and you will get the links to the Amazon in different countries, and it should appear as for free, so you can read that. It's fairly short, light read, full of facts, so it's quite enjoyable. About our company, as mentioned, we co-founded it in 2011, mainly focusing on contracts. This year, we've started offering consulting services. We are a consulting company, but that we are also an alternative to contractors and even permanent employees, the way we structured our offer. Now, our promise is to deliver the top quality Power BI dashboards and reports with what we call wow and aha effect that makes the difference for you, and do it in the most affordable and flexible way with excellent customer service. So that's what we promise to and deliver to our clients. And the way we are different is we designed a unique service called Flexity that solves all key inefficiencies, problems, and minimizes risk of running a Power BI projects, which we are proud of because it is really, really good. For comparison, if we take a typical 6 months project, big consulting, if they charge you in the region of 1,000, a day, it will cost 120k 120 days, contractor 72k, permanent 72.5. And our team, Flexi team, we have a global Flexi team that would do essentially the same effort in with higher efficiency at 76 days at 22.8k, and Flexi team local, which is UK or the country someone lives in, for 34.2k. So a big savings in time and money, and that's what we essentially promise to our clients. Now you can learn more. I will be doing a series of videos that explains how I calculated this and all the benefits, and it's available on katieandemil.com. And we also do a referral 10% per client for lifetime. So if you have a company who is considering going to a consulting company instead of employing a contractor and you refer us, you get 10%. You can follow us on LinkedIn. We have a company page. We post on a daily basis. It's LinkedIn, Katie and Emil, and personal accounts is just Emil Glownia and Katie Glownia, which are easy to find. And please do connect with us. And if you've got any questions after the sessions, feel free to send me a message. I'm very happy to answer it. So the main questions I want to ask during this session is, how can we measure Power BI success? And there are many different ways to do that, but one of it is usage data. So imagine yourself where you have developed 20 different reports, you publish it, and what's next? If you want to figure out if it's actually being used and how well it's being used and who uses it and how frequently it's being used, then usage data is what you can use for that. So the questions we will be answering on the dashboard is, are users using the reports, which is the main point of obviously delivering the reports? Is the report performance acceptable? And there are now ways to obtain data for performance, which is very nice. It's a new feature which has been with us for a while now. Who is using your reports? And more questions that we can answer. So I will be presenting some of them during this webinar. So in Power BI service, you have access to built-in report usage metrics, and you can navigate to your workspace, click a report, and then click view usage metrics. Or if you open a report and click the ellipsis, you also have this option, open usage metrics. So this is the what's available out of the box. If you click that, you will have two options. So there are two built-in reports used metrics. One is called report usage metrics report, and it's switched off. So that's the kind of classic old one. And then there is a new one called usage metrics report. And if you switch the toggle to new usage report, that's what you will get. By default, I believe you will get now usage metrics report, the new one, but you can switch back to the old one if you wish to do that. Now, this is the classic one. So what we get in here is you go to a specific report. So all the information that is available is for a specific report, and we get views per day, unique viewers per day, shares per day, and a little bit of summary. So I presume it's a starting point, but it doesn't kind of give us a lot of useful information. So it's quite limited into just views per day and who viewed this particular report. You can also select the distribution method and platform, which I personally don't use, so there is limited usage of that. Now, what you also can see in here is when you open the report in the classic view, you will get data for the last 90 days, and that's the limit you get. You can learn more about the classic one from the documentation available on Microsoft website. The limitation is, well, fairly basic information displayed for the last 90 days. Shows only one report at a time. So in order to overcome that, you need to edit the report, change the report in the filters, or drag it as a slicer and save as a new report. You cannot modify underlying data model, and it doesn't track published to web data, which is a shame, as I do use that on my website. Now, the positive points is you can edit the reports, so you will have what you saw on my screen, and then you can save it, click edit, save it as a different report, click edit, and modify it to your liking, so you will have access to the model that is available, and you can modify that. You can also connect to the data model using Power BI Desktop and add your own measures. So this is where in the Power BI Desktop, you go to a source, select Power BI dataset, connect to it. It will be available there. I think it's going to be called something with report usage. And then once you connect, you can add your own measures to it. And another thing is you can export data manually, and I will be covering how to use the data from it to build your own dashboard. And for premium, I haven't tried it myself, but there is an option to click settings, and it will give you access to URL where you can use it to extract the data automatically and schedule it. Now, this is the new usage report. It's got several pages. Page 1 shows us a summary, so it's quite nice. I quite like the simple design of it and the icons. It's similar to what we do in our company. So we've got report opens, report page views, unique viewers, and report open trends. And similarly, we have daily report opens over here with the weekly report opens as a line. So still fairly basic information about a single report. A date slicer distribution platform. There is a little bit more information in here. We have users and the report opens and total page views and the pages that have been accessed inside the report. Now, this one is the second page, and I quite like it because with the new usage report, it actually tracks the performance of the reports when it's loaded and when it's fully presented with the data. So you can see that typical opening time for this report is 8 seconds, opening time trend, and for most users, your report opens within 3 to 19 seconds, and you have the daily performance. It's done using percentile, so 25, 50, and 75 over a period of time. And then well, if countries doesn't apply to use, it's not going to, if it's a single country, it's not going to be much of a usage, but we have browsers and see what the performance is in different browsers, which is quite useful. And let's move on to the next one. So the limitations of previous ones was that it is only a single report at a time. Now this one, page 3, actually I've hidden the report names, but it's essentially a list of reports over here with the views, users, days, and view trend. So do get a summary of all reports on a single page, which has been added as an additional page at some point. So this is quite useful. I quite like the fact on this one because it gives you kind of an overview of all the reports, and you can click it. However, it's still relatively limited information and what you can learn from it. So it's still not as useful as I would like it to be. Now, the documentation is available using this link. I will share the PowerPoint presentation. The limitation is it actually shows only last 30 days. So it's if you want to look at the trends, it's only 30 days. So you cannot compare this month to previous month because it's only 30 days. So it's very limited in this respect. It shows only one report at a time, except one page that I showed you. And you cannot modify the underlying data model and doesn't track publish to web. So similar limitations to the classic. Now, positive points, and a very big one for me is the performance load time statistics. This is quite interesting to see how well the reports are performing, and you can get these statistics. You can connect to the data model and do your own DAX measures. So those are the usage reports built in, and I find them to be quite limited. So what I have done is I have extracted the data. You can extract the same data from both of them and a little bit more from the new one and build your own dashboard. So why? Well, first of all, you can load historical data. So you can overcome the 30 and 90 days limit, and you can have multiple months. You can, if you want to, load multiple workspaces into a single solution, and then add the slicers for the workspace name and view it per workspace. Option to load definitive list of users and reports. So with the built-in ones, you don't have this option, but for doing your own solutions, you can create a list of users that have access to the report and build a list of reports, and then you can expand on additional attributes related to that, and I will show you later on what I have done. And you can expand the data model to include additional info about user. So you can expand it and show department. For the reports, you can group it, you can add targets, so anything that increases the value of your data. And obviously data dimension, you can work with working days, bank holidays, so you can make it more useful depending on the trends of the data. Obviously, Monday we work typically Monday to Friday, so it makes sometimes sense to exclude certain days from the data. Now, what data can you get from the classic and new usage? You can get the user, the report, the date, and the fact table would be the views. Now, if you want more in the new usage model, there is more data that we can extract. You can explore what's available. One of it is the performance data that can be very useful. So I will show you the report and what I have done. Now, let me just show you the fields. So I've got a report, user, view measures, reporting date, and report measures. So as very simple model. I have random data in here, so it doesn't quite make sense comparing to the real world data, but we do have all users, active users, usage, and number of reports. So that gives us a high level summary. I do focus on users instead of views, as I prefer to see how many users we have for each report, and it makes more sense to me because all the users are being tracked with a login, so I actually have this data. So on the reports, you can see how many users use it. And then we have active users for each month. You can see there is 7 months available data in here, and then users usage by week as a percentage, and names over here. So this is the starting point. Now, when I've started doing that, what I thought, well, that's good. I like it. It's a little bit better than the built-in ones, but it's still not giving me as much information as I would like. So for instance, if I look at the reports, I have users 85, 30, but it doesn't actually tell me, it doesn't compare the report to the target of how many users I should have for a specific report. So if I expect 100 and I have 85, and there are 15 people who are missing out or are not using the report, which I could identify and contact. And so some of it might be 31, but it might be just 25 as a target, and maybe we are getting more users. So it's difficult for me to assess that. So that's one addition that I would do, and I will show you in a minute how I've done this. Now, when I click one of the items, it shows me active users over here over a period of time, so I can see the trend of it, which is nice. I see usage. Now, the limitations that I have of the usage, it compares the usage to total number of users and not to my target. So in here is 25%. If I go to this one, for instance, is 7 to 11%. So it's comparison to all of them. So there is an improvement to be made. And then we've got names. I've got the names. However, I don't know which department the person is from and how would this look if I compare the different departments. So let's look at the usage targets. So what I have done in here is I've added the targets for each report, and I have done a calculation that shows the usage of it. So you can see that the biggest usage in here is this one. So, well, the target must be 10 because the usage is 160%. You can, if I click that, I can also see the target on the active users list, which is quite nice. I can see everything is above the target and I can see the trend. So for me, that's a much more useful information to digest. And also, if I look at the users usage percentage by week, I can see that I've got the users usage percentage, which is the comparison to all users. And then I have report users usage, and that shows me that if I compare it to the target, I get weeks where I have 90% of people compared to the target, and some where it's 60% by week. So it's quite useful information to see what is the usage. If we compare it to a different one, you can see This one is quite consistent, 6. We have 100% and drops to 40% or 20% in certain weeks. So this may mean that, well, it's random data, but this potentially can mean that there are certain weeks or end of the month or beginning of the month where there is a higher usage of this report. And then there are periods of time where there is a lower usage because it's not being used for reporting purposes. So we can identify this kind of trends in here. So we let me see if there is anything which has some interesting data. The data changes slightly, but it's random data, so I don't have a massive differences. Obviously, in a real-world scenario, I would expect certain reports that have just been published to the workspace, so I wouldn't see some of the data, let's say for January until April, and would see only May, which potentially would be increasing in June, in July. So if we are releasing a report and we do it in phases to a limited number of limited number of users, and then increases, we should see it on the graph as increasing. And then for others, if we look at some of the other more major reports, we can see if it continues to be stable, increases, or maybe decreases, depending on what it is. Now, in here, the information about the reports, I only added target, but if you think about the reports, there are different ways how you can describe the report. So you could potentially provide additional information about the report. For instance, is it a monthly report, weekly report, a yearly report? Is it being used on a regular basis or ad hoc basis? And provide anything that would be of use for the analysis or understanding the user's behavior. Okay, so let me move to the usage matrix. So this one is we have the department information. So we have active users and total users, so everything shows as 100%. Now, what I can do in here is, if I click the finance, I can see all the reports that are being used by finance department. So not a specific users, but by the department, and I can see how many users there are. So we can see that the total users is 13. All 13 users use all those reports, and then there are fewer ones. So one thing we could potentially ask ourselves is identify if there are more users who could potentially use this report. So for instance, this one is at 100%, so that's okay, but this one is at 60%. So we could ask ourselves, where are the 4 missing people who are not using it in the last 7 months? And see how it goes. So obviously we have the slicer. Let me just have a look where we can limit the amount of data, and let me actually put it as recent instead of. So if we look at June and July, we can see what is the percentage of users using that. So that's also useful for analysis. Now, we can also look at it from the other side. So if I select the main report, the top one, it shows me all the departments, and you can see 85 active users. Now, but if I go to, let me actually use the usage. So with the usage, I can sort it, and let me just go to the lowest usage. If I click at the lowest usage, and I can see 6 users. All of them are from finance. And what's interesting in here is I can see all the users from finance and the 6 users that are actually using it. So I can actually see who in finance is not using it. Now, for the reports, we have added the target, which is a number. There isn't anything stopping us to actually identify who the users are. So for instance, if I've got a target of 10 users and I add a table with the expected users for this table, I could potentially identify not only active users, but also users who should have accessed it, and then users who don't use it. So it would be kind of another level of analysis that would be quite useful. And you can see in this particular case, it's only finance. And if I click some other reports, the data varies. So this can give me a picture which departments does it apply to, how it's being used by different people. Another thing, obviously, with the department, we can expand it a little bit and provide additional information about the users. We could identify joiners and leavers. So for instance, this person has viewed it, those reports across different months, but if it's a new person, a new joiner, and only has certain months, we could identify that on the report, so we could perform answer questions like that. Okay, now we've recently got a graphic designer in our team, in our Flexity team, and he modified our template, what I've come up with, and added a little bit of the wow effect. I quite like the visual aspect of it. So that's the same information, only slightly improved visually. So you can see the usage over here. I like that. The target, it's the same functionality. It just visually, I think, improved. Now, what we could potentially do next, here we've still got some options to do a report tooltips. So if we wanted to expand on certain things and do a report tooltip, I haven't got it here yet. Once I think about how to improve it, I will be gradually adding new features to it over a period of time and add it. One thing that I haven't got in here, which I will add in the future, is the performance data. So I would be quite interested in the performance data, and let me just show you what's available. And let me just click that. So the performance data is available in the built-in option. For the new kind of new experience, we can access it. Let me just see, by going to the Power BI data sets. Now I need to think about which one it is. Usage. One is called report usage metrics and usage metrics report. I think it was report, this one, usage metrics report. Let's have a look. Yes, it is. So this is how you can connect from a desktop to the report. You can see the model measures. All the measures have been grouped into a separate table with folders. And what we have in here is different measures. But what we are interested in this particular case is the load times. So for some reason, everything in here is as a percentile. That's how they decided to do it on the built-in one. So if you want to use percentile, you've got them available. Now, if you want to do your own measures, let me see. In the table, report load times, there is the field load time, and that will show you the load time for a particular report or report page, and you can integrate this information. Let me just expand that, collapse that. So as you can see, we've got information from the user. So if you wanted to export the data, all you need to do is get the information, get the fields like user ID, user key, and export it using the Power BI option. The same for the reports. We have the GUID and report name, and then for the views, we have in here report ID, unique user, and views, so we can export this information. There is a little bit more information on this one, like report views, report rank, report pages, so individual pages of the report, and page views. Report page views is here as well, and load times and the dates. And just to show you how it actually looks behind the scenes. So we have a report info. So I've got it in my OneDrive as report. So I exported the data to CSV and then imported it. So these are all my reports. Users data is here. I added the department, as you can see in here, view measures with the pages over here, and report measures over here with the user's target. Now you will be able to download it. I will share the link with you, and you will get access to the files, CSV files, Power BI file, and a presentation. So once it's available, once the recording is available, I will also share a link to that, and you will be able to download it and play with it yourself. Now, what I would also like to share with you is an option of Powershell. So I haven't played with PowerShell too much. I've tried to see what the Office 365 usage logs are providing me, and that was quite limited, so I dropped the idea. But there is someone who created a PowerShell script from Power BI tips, Tommy, in this from this article, and he uses the goals over here to show performance usage statistics and you've got some usage statistics here. So it's just another way to do certain things. And there is PowerShell over here that you can get the data from. So different ways to do the things. So I'll leave this one with you to explore. So you will get, as I mentioned, get the Power BI dashboard and use it yourself. Sample random data is included. You will get the PowerPoint slides and webinar recording. So that's all that I wanted to show you for the reports usage. If there are any questions, let me know. If you have any questions after the sessions, feel free to send me a LinkedIn message and I will reply to it.
Fantastic, Emil. Absolutely great session. We've had quite a lot of engagement within the Q&A as well. So we do have some questions to pose to you. So I'll just go through them one by one. So we have an anonymous user, and I believe you did touch on this, but they asked, how can you go back greater than 90 days in an automated fashion to start to build out some of the usage metrics and reports within the data set?
Yeah, so an automated way would be there is an option with premium. So whether it's premium per user or premium workspace, I explored it. There is an option that gives you access to essentially the backend of Power BI analysis services, and you can connect to that using SSIS or Azure Data Factory and extract this data and schedule it, and then just combine it together. I'm not aware of any other way. There are ways like some people say, I've seen one session about exporting data from Power BI using R script and something like that, but there are some limitations to that as well. And another thing is just to do it manually. I mean, it takes something like 3 minutes to click a few buttons and do it. So you just need to figure out if that's too much for you. But if there are no other options, then 3 minutes is not too bad.
Exactly. Fantastic. Thank you. Another question from an anonymous user is how did you get the all users figure? Again, the anonymous user says they can only get the last 90 days of users and the active users only. So how did you get the all users figure for your dashboard?
So this is where on my dashboard, this is where I have a separate file and I essentially import all users as a definitive list. So it's kind of my master data. So my users info, I have imported everyone who I expect who has essentially a Power BI license. So there are different ways to do that. Some people will manage a spreadsheet and say these users have access to the workspace and made them information. You can add the users to the workspace and retrieve some information. I'm not sure what we can retrieve, but one way or another, if you get external number of users from external list, then you can get the total instead of relying on all users that is reported by the built-in usage metrics.
That makes total sense. So I presume in that case that you map those users to a user ID and then map them to the data.
Yes, that would be. Let me just think about that. I think that would be on an email address. I can't remember. There is a ID. I'm not sure if it shows email address. Let me actually see that. Yeah, there is user principal name. So that would be, you could do that on email address.
Fantastic. And that also answers a question from Chinmay. And they basically asked, how did you get the full name and how did you get the department as well?
So yeah, so that's the same. So it's an external spreadsheet where you just mapped all the users to a department. So you either extract it from your HR system uh, or directory that contains the information and put it into a spreadsheet or a file and then import it as an external source and expand it.
Excellent, thank you. And we have a question from Kieran, and Kieran, I'll just start this off with no question is a stupid question. So Kieran has a job interview coming up in the usage of Power BI, and he asks, why is report usage important? Who would use this report?
So why is it important? So essentially, that's the main questions that I've asked at the beginning of the session. As how do you know that your delivery of Power BI is successful? So you are asking yourself, what are the important questions? What are the important questions you need to ask yourself about the about the delivery of the reports? And the important questions will be the usage, as in you need to identify if you expected 50 people to use it and 20 people use it, then you've got a problem. 30 users are not using it, and you need to, once you've got this data, you can then go to users and ask them, why are you not using it? Is it not as good as you expected it, or do you not have the time, or find some reasons? And you can get this feedback and understand better, get more knowledge about why people are not using it. So the monitoring aspect will help you to see if everything is going okay, if everything is according to what you expected, and then you can ask. I will see, when you have reports, you want to go to as many people as possible that would benefit from the report. So the usage helps you also to identify those people, like we've used the department to identify other users in the same department that could potentially benefit on that. So there are certain analysis that you can potentially do to expand the reach of your reports. Another thing is the performance. Some clients, some users will say, well, it's running very slowly, but they cannot really quantify it. So you could go to the report and say, yeah, I've checked this report. It does run slowly, and it runs slowly on these pages, and I will go and investigate it and improve it. Or you may say, well, it's actually running fine, but it's slow on a certain browser, or it's because of your internet, and you can have this information available to you to help users.
Fantastic, a whole suite of benefits then.
Yeah.
And another question from Jin Meng, and they ask, what is the formula that you're using for calculating the usage percentage?
Let me have a look. I think it will be quite straightforward. Yeah, I only have in here active users by total users. And it's as simple as that. I think in this case, in the usage, it will be something similar. Yeah, in the usage on this chart is, if a report has been selected on the left side, then I do active users divided by the report users target, and that gets me this second line.
Perfect. And I'm right in thinking as well, Emil, that you will be sharing the PBIX file following this session as well.
Yes, I've already got it on the website, so I'll share a link with you, and you can send it.
Excellent, thank you.
To users.
And so we have another anonymous question, and they ask, how did you connect to the report server objects to get all of the workspace info?
Say again. I didn't quite get that.
They asked, how did you connect to the report server objects to get all of the workspace info? So the presumption is that they're referring to the Power BI service and the report usage dataset.
Yeah. I presume it's this one that I connected to.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so this one, all I did is, well, let me actually, so one of the sources that we have available is a Power BI dataset, and that's where if we have a dataset available on Power BI service, then we can connect to it from a Power BI desktop. And when we use the built-in usage metrics, then it auto-generates datasets for us. We cannot download them, and we cannot see what's inside them, but we can use the Power BI dataset option over here. And that goes to my service. And if I type in usage, that's the dataset, auto-generated dataset for this specific workspace. And that creates the connection.
Excellent, thank you. And we're just going to move on to the next question. This one's from Emmanuel, and they ask that they've sometimes got the impression that some user activity is missing from the usage reports, and it can be for a specific user or during a specific time frame. Have you ever experienced of this, or do you think the data from usage reports is totally reliable?
So I don't know how reliable it is. It's difficult to quantify unless you have specific examples where you noticed that something is not right. I have seen some anomalies in the performance statistics where it wouldn't stop and it would go very high. It would be an outlier in the data. I'm not sure about the users if it's under-reporting or over-reporting some usage. It's difficult to say. I'm hoping it's reliable and I'm hoping it's accurate, but it's difficult to catch on this because we would have to be, in order to assess it, we would have to be knowing what the users are doing and what they are doing, and then compare it to the data, and that's not very realistic to do in real world.
No problem at all. And we have a question from Rani, which potentially slightly off topic, but I'll ask anyway, is which way is more useful performance-wise? Is it creating calculated columns via DAX or to create calculated columns via Power Query?
So when you do a calculated column in Power Query, it's going to be more efficient in compressing the data and using it before it goes to the report. So, however, how much of a difference does it make? That probably would depend on the data set. If the data set is relatively small, there probably shouldn't be much of a difference. So what I typically do in these cases, because this kind of questions can be quite vague, I would say just compare the performance, because sometimes the performance will be almost identical and there is no difference. Occasionally there will be a difference on different type of questions, but I would say it's one of those things that I would have to test it out. I personally haven't seen much of a difference in between those two in all the projects that I've done. Never caused me any issues, or I never had to make it one way or another on the data sets. So on this particular one, I think from my experience, there is very little difference.
Yes, definitely. And as always, if you can, push all of your transformations and additional columns back to your data source if possible. And we have a question from Anonymous, who I believe is Rishi. So thanks for joining us, Rishi. Good to see you here. And he joined late, so he might have missed, but have you covered any information and looking at the Azure monitor or bring your own log analytics?
No, I haven't. I haven't looked into those. I will explore this, but I haven't looked into those options.
No problem at all. And it's just a follow-up. So in terms of connecting to the data set, the users asked, do we bring usage metrics data set model for each of the workspaces individually?
Can you repeat the question?
So I believe the question's asking is, so when you're connecting to the usage metrics data set, would you have to do this individually for each of the workspaces, or is there a way to combine all of the data sets for all of the workspaces together?
So it would be individual because I don't think there is a way. Well, I'm pretty sure there is no way to connect to multiple data sets from different workspaces, even if they have the same schema. It wouldn't work. That's my assumption, and I think it's quite accurate.
Excellent, thank you. And so I believe that's all of our questions so far for today's session. So I'll just give a moment or two just to see if there are any follow-ups, because we do have a slight delay in the web stream as it goes out as a live stream. But fantastic in answering all of our questions there, Emil, and also for putting together such an enjoyable and insightful session.
And thank you very much.
No problem at all. As I mentioned, we'll just give it a couple of moments just to see if any more questions do filter in. But as always, what will happen is we'll have this session available on our YouTube channel over the next few days for anybody that missed it to be able to come back and listen live to our recorded session. I've put the note, the actual link for that into the chat, and I've also posted all of the additional links that we went through in today's session as well throughout. And you can also go and get Katie and Emil's free book as well from the links within the chat. So it doesn't look like we have any further questions again this evening. So once again, Emil, really enjoyed having you here with us this evening. We're getting some thank yous coming through within the chat as well, which is fantastic. And we look forward to having you with us again in the future. And to everybody that's joined in from the Microsoft Power BI UK user group community this evening, and also from our sponsors, Onyx Data. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. We look forward to seeing you next week and again soon. Stay safe.